All together now. The Census Week of Action kicks off today, and the Count Me 2020 Coalition is encouraging the community to participate. Joining us with more on the campaign and why it's important to complete your census form is Count Me in Campaign Representative Ramah Awad from the Majdal Center. Good morning, Ramah.
Good morning, Lauren. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us, because I know the census was a hot topic and then it just sort of got buried in the news cycle of things. But it's still a really important thing that we all need to take part in, that only comes around, every 10 years. So let's talk about how we can get involved in the Week of Action, what you're calling for from the community.
Sure. So I work with the Majdal Center, and we're a member organization of the Count Me 2020 Coalition. And really what we're asking for this week is for our community leaders to get out into the community and remind their base and their members that the census is live and it's happening. And we need to make a concerted effort to be filling out the census, because it determines the next 10 years in terms of federal budgets, as well as redistricting and other matters concerning resources and political representation.
I would imagine that the biggest concern right now is that people aren't participating or just don't even care, because there's so many other things going on in their lives for any number of reasons. And so do we know at all yet how COVID or some of the protests and things are affecting the response rate so far? Are we able to judge that as we go?
Definitely. It has been somewhat difficult to assess these things. We know that given the pandemic, we really had to adjust our outreach plans, where we were doing workshops and being out in the community directly interfacing with our community members. We've had to adjust all of our canvassing and our campaigning efforts to remote work. So that's included a lot of phone banking, social media campaigning. And so I imagine that in the months to come, when we receive more of the self-response rates, those things will become clear.
And we just put up on the screen a statistic that is pretty interesting, that California is considered the hardest to count state in the nation. Why is that?
I think it's because California is a state with one of the highest populations of refugee and immigrant communities in the country. And oftentimes with these communities, when it comes to filling out any type of government paperwork, the census being a type of government paperwork, they come up against linguistic barriers as well as cultural barriers. And there tends to be a hesitation, I think, or a lack of awareness around the census. And so for those reasons, I think California has historically had a lower response rate than other states.
Yeah. And we covered how important it is, and we really need those federal dollars, especially because of the pandemic. And so it's important that every person counts so that we don't lose money. So how can people, if they haven't had their census come in the mail, if they think, oops, I think I threw that out thinking it wasn't important, how can people make sure that they are counted in this census?
Right. So it's actually very simple. You can go online to my2020census.gov. And even if you haven't received anything in the mail, you can just plug in your address and register for the census according to your place of residency. You can also go on the website and find the number to call in. And if you have received something in the mail and held on to that paper, you can also fill it out by hand and mail it back in.
Okay, so very easy, and I can attest that it took less than 10 minutes, so pretty simple to do and makes a big impact. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning, and certainly hope everybody makes their self counted.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.